Hello, greetings and welcome, my dear viewers and listeners. As my Patreon supporters have decided through the vote, today we shall continue the discussion of Mass Effect versus Warhammer 40k scenario with very specific subject in mind. How Commander Farsight, leader of Enclaves, would have reacted to being transported to a new reality and how he would view this new galaxy and bizarre things in it. I will try my best to be concise and to make this video short. I will not go into too much detail, focusing on initial opinions of Farsight rather than actions he would take. Mostly because I want to keep this series going and make more videos. But before we begin, remember to like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, the whole shtick. You know what to do. If you can, support me through Patreon, so I could do this YouTube thing full time. I would also encourage you to donate to Art Budget for Star Wars x Warhammer 40k series through Ko-fi. It's thanks to your donations this narrative series has its own art gallery. And of course, if you have fan art you wish to share or hope for it to be shown in the series, I invite you to join my Discord server, where you can find me more often than not. I hope you will join our growing community. With all that out of the way, let's begin. Let's start with time and place. The year is 2157, Earth Standard. As the Systems Alliance prepares to activate the 314 relay and the First Contact War looms on the horizon, an anomaly occurs on the opposite side of the galaxy. Deep in the terminus systems, the entire Farsight enclaves are suddenly transported into the Mass Effect universe. This strange phenomenon will remain unnoticed by the most of the galaxy for years. The enclaves appear in a remote and largely uncharted region. The closest known area from the games is Rosetta Nebula, which at this point doesn't have any settled worlds. The only planet later colonized there was Joab, and that wouldn't happen until 14 years after First Contact War. There is also 2175 Aia, where a human survey ship would eventually crash land, but that wouldn't happen until 16 years into the future. In other words, by the time the enclaves arrive, there is no one nearby to notice them. The Tau would soon realize, however, that they were no longer in their home galaxy. The night sky alone would give it away, completely unfamiliar constellation, and the sudden silence of signal, traffic coming from Tau, human and even orc worlds, all cut off without a warning. Survey ships and explorers would be dispatched, and they'd return with unthinkable revelation. The enclaves had been transported to an entirely different galaxy. Even more troubling, there were no civilized worlds anywhere nearby. And though Tau wouldn't know it yet, the mass relay in the Rosetta Nebula was inactive. Lore tells us it was on the list of forbidden relays, leading only into uncharted space. We don't know its designation or exactly when it was eventually activated, but it must have been shortly before the colonization of Joab. Considering the time needed for survey missions and preparations for settlement so far outside Citadel space, it's safe to place the activation somewhere between 10 and 12 years after the First Contact War. So around 2167 to 2169. Until then, the enclaves would have free reign to establish themselves in this remote corner of a galaxy. As for when in the Enclave's history this happens, let's set it after the third sphere of expansion, but before the Arcs of Omen. Roughly around the same time the Great Rift split the galaxy in two, a relatively up-to-date version of the Enclaves. So, with that groundwork laid down, let's consider how Farsight himself would react. First of all, like anyone else, Farsight would be utterly confused by the sudden displacement of his people into another reality. But once the initial shock passed, his mind would race. He would immediately begin asking questions, not only about who, if anyone, was responsible for this phenomenon, but also about how to redefine the very identity of enclaves. After all, they had always existed in contrast to the Empire. Without the Empire, there was no contrast. The realization that only the enclaves had been transported would hit him especially hard. For while Farsight never waged open war against the Ethereals, his ultimate dream was to free all Tau from their influence. Now, that dream will be out of reach, forever beyond him. Moreover, his old friends, fellow students of Puritide, Shadow-san and Okais, would now be forever out of reach. It's not a well-known fact, but while Shadow-san and Okais despise Farsight for betraying the Empire, he never returned that hatred. Despite everything they did against him, despite the pain they caused, he never hated them. He was only saddened and disappointed that they never came to see the truth about the Tau Empire and the Ethereals' control. I'm sure it would take him time to accept that he could no longer save either his people or his old comrades from the ethereal caste grip. The realization that Chaos, Orcs, the Drukhari and the Imperium of Man hadn't been transported alongside him would offer some relief, but it's doubtful that comfort could outweigh his grief. But let's shift focus now to the Mass Effect galaxy itself, and the undeniable proof that this was not just a jump through space or time, but a transition to a completely different reality. What is this proof? Element 0, also known as Eezo. This would be the first solid confirmation. Its very existence proves the enclaves are in another universe, since there is no evidence of anything like it in 40k. To those unfamiliar, when subjected to an electrical current, Element 0 releases dark energy, used in Mass Effect drives and countless other technologies. The Tau are no strangers to dark energy. While not widespread, it's increasingly relied upon in both civilian and military reactors. In fact, during the fifth sphere of expansion, the Tau established the sept world of Kortal, orbiting a black hole, specifically to harvest dark energy. Yes, you heard that right. They stabilized a planet's orbit around a black hole, built a massive space station to act as artificial sun, and dedicated the colony to harvesting dark energy from the event horizon itself. The enclaves may lag behind the Empire in technology, but they still utilize dark energy, though not on the same scale. So, discovering the Element 0 would be nothing short of revolutionary. It would offer a far more efficient and vastly safer alternative to extracting dark matter. And crucially, it would happen long before the Tau ever discovered a single Prothean ruin or activated a mass relay. Speaking of which, once the Enclaves reached the Enoch system within the Rosetta Nebula, they would encounter 3 things of interest. The first point of interest is planet Joab itself. Evidence suggests it was once home to an intelligent, spacefaring primate species, wiped out in the distant past. The only proof of their existence lies in a handful of ancient time capsules. All of their population centers were obliterated in what can only be described as massive orbital bombardment. This discovery would be deeply significant to Farsight, as it would confirm his worst fears: that civilizations in this galaxy are willing to commit exterminatus-level acts of annihilation against other species. Even if it were confirmed to have happened long ago, Farsight would remain on guard. The second notable finding is a Prothean artifact on Joab. I doubt it would be located immediately or easily decoded. We know Shepard was only able to interpret its message thanks to his unique interaction with Eden Prime's beacon. The Tau, of course, would not have such an advantage. The message Shepard receives is nearly identical to one from Eden Prime, warning about the Reapers, with the addition of the Collectors. It doesn't appear to be a repository of knowledge, nothing like the archives on Mars. So, while the Tau might extract fragments of information, it's unlikely to redefine their technology in any meaningful way. Farsight, for his part, would be only mildly interested. Ancient ruins are a common sight in the 40k galaxy. Necrons, Eldar, Golden Age of humanity, and countless others have left them scattered across the stars. Even the Downblade was discovered within such ruins. The final and most critical discovery, of course, would be the mass relay in the system. Inactive, silent. The Tau would study it, and with the skill of the Earthcast, along with whatever insights they could glean from the artifact, they would likely deduce its function as a faster-than-light travel device. Now, how would Farsight react to this discovery? Given the fate of Joab's original species and the complete absence of other civilizations nearby, I believe he would fortify the system to an extreme degree. The Enclaves are well known for their Tashiro-class fortress stations, some of which rival the Death Star in size. Before even attempting to activate the relay, Farsight would order constant monitoring of it, and surround it with overwhelming defenses. If the relay ever reactivated and someone attempted to arrive in the Enoch system, they would be met with hundreds of guns aimed directly at them. The importance of the system would not be underestimated. Farsight would likely establish a full sept there, tasked with guarding the relay and ensuring no unknown potential hostile force could use it to threaten the Enclaves. After a lifetime spent in Warhammer 40k Galaxy, facing orcs, chaos and the Imperium, Farsight would take no chances. Some might call him a warlord, but a more fitting title would be Lord Protector, because that is his true role, not to rule the Enclaves, but to protect them. The very existence of FTL system like mass relays would concern Farsight. Their presence alone implies that some kind of empire deliberately built them. He would probably suspect the Protheans, but even then, the deeper questions would gnaw at him. Why did the Protheans deactivate this relay? Or, possibly worse, what kind of force could wipe out a civilization capable of creating such technology? Not pleasant thoughts. And those questions would likely haunt Farsight for years, during the long wait between the discovering of Enoch's system, the relay, and its eventual reactivation. So, let's fast forward to the moment when the wider galaxy finally comes knocking on the doors of the Enclaves. 2169. The mass relay comes online. Fortress stations and defensive fleets snapped to full alert. Warning signals spread across the Enclaves. Local septs rise their defenses, every unit placed on maximum readiness. Whatever is coming, the Enclaves will not be caught off guard. What emerges from the relay is a survey ship, owned by the corporation closely tied to the Systems Alliance. It enters the system only to find itself staring down enough guns to put the entire Alliance Navy to shame. This marks the first contact between the wider galaxy and the Farsight Enclaves. And both sides will be equally stunned, because the last thing the Tau expected to see were humans. Well, maybe not the absolute last thing. At the very bottom of that list would be a pacifist orc, a vegetarian tyrannid, a Jukari with a moral compass, or a Necron who is actually a living person and not an undead robot. But still, you get the point. The presence of humans would immediately raise alarms. Remember how the Tau view humanity as a destructive, selfish and power-obsessed species. Farsight in particular is not fond of humans. Oh, he respects the strength and the discipline of Imperium's armies, he respects human warriors, but humans as a species, not so much. The humans of the Mass Effect universe, despite minor genetic differences, being from another galaxy and living in the 22nd century, while Imperium-era humans are from 42nd millennium, are still unmistakably the same species. After the initial standoff, guns raised, interrogations, cautious dialogue, I believe Farsight would eventually release the survey team. He would then dispatch his own diplomats across the relay to establish contact with the wider galaxy, all while carefully analyzing the intelligence gathered from the captured humans. Now, let's take a closer look at how Farsight would react to new information about this galaxy. First, I think Farsight would thank the stars that his fears about some massive civilization exterminating the natives of Joab turned out to be unfounded. He would also feel some relief, learning that the relays were built by the long-dead Protheans, though the mystery of their downfall would still weigh on him. He'd be further reassured by the fact that the Enclaves end up deep within the Terminus systems, a lawless part of the galaxy where even the great superpower, the Citadel Council, has little influence. For Farsight, that's good news. No major empire nearby, no overwhelming rival power breathing down the Enclave's neck. Of course, the Terminus systems are hardly safe. Piracy, slavers, mercenaries, and warlords abound. But none of those forces could realistically organize an assault strong enough to push through the fortified relay defenses he established. He might have some concerns about the Geth, but at this point in history they remain isolated, keeping to themselves. A potential danger, yes, but not an immediate one. All things considered, that's a very promising situation. Now, as for the Citadel Council itself, I think Farsight would be pleasantly surprised. In this galaxy, the position of hegemon isn't held by a single, all-consuming empire, but by a coalition of alien species, who, for the most part, prefer diplomacy over war. The only openly aggressive state is Batarian hegemony, which, let's be honest, is rather pathetic. They were humbled by humanity, a newcomer to the galactic stage, so while Batarians wield influence in the terminus systems, I doubt Farsight or the Enclaves would see them as a real problem. Lastly, we come to the Systems Alliance, and here Farsight would be baffled. The idea of a human government not hell-bent on exterminating every other species would strike him as bizarre. Sure, he would have plenty of questions about the First Contact War and humanity's rapid expansion afterward, but compared to the humanity of the 40k galaxy, the Systems Alliance would be almost tame. The only worrying element, of course, would be the Cerberus. To Farsight, the radical human faction would look like a seed of the very Imperium of Man he knows from his home galaxy. And that would make them a far greater concern in his eyes because of what they could become. He would likely do whatever he could to counter them. So, overall Farsight reaction to the major states of this galaxy? Pleasantly surprised. By all counts, there doesn't appear to be any one faction capable of directly threatening the Enclaves. Especially when you compare the scale. Mass Effect operates on far smaller level than Warhammer 40k. That's not to say the weapons of Mass Effect Galaxy couldn't pose a threat to the Tau, but with a sheer firepower guarding the mass relay, any force attempting to enter the Enoch system would be erased in seconds. On top of all that, the Tau have ion weapons, and Mass Effect ships are famously weak against energy-based attacks. Tau ion guns can simply ignore the shields on most ships and tear straight through the armor with little effort. That's one hell of advantage. Another surprise for Farsight would be the fact that the entire galaxy has based its technology on the Prothean technology. The idea that for millennia every species has simply built upon the legacy of a long-dead civilization, one that was either destroyed or collapsed, would strike him as foolish. The Tau adapt technology from others, but I doubt they would ever build their entire tech tree on the ruins of a fallen empire. After all, the odds are high that Prothean technology either contributed to their downfall or failed to save them. And one last thing. Biotics. I doubt the Tau would ever predict that exposure to Element Zero could give individuals literal superpowers. To Farsight, such abilities would be deeply suspicious, especially since they resemble warp powers. In time, however, he would likely recognize Biotics as a potential tool, something dangerous, but worth using. Now, to finish this video, let's go through the species of Mass Effect and consider Farsight's initial opinion on each one. Let's start with Citadel Races. Humanity. Suspicious. After his experience with humans in the 41st millennium, I doubt Farsight would see them as a benevolent force for progress. He would view them the same way he views all humans, unfit to govern themselves. A species that must be kept under control, otherwise they risk unleashing horrors and holy wars of extermination upon the galaxy. That opinion might soften over time, but you can't just set aside centuries of bitter experience in a few short years. Asari. Amusingly, Farsight wouldn't like them at all. They live for centuries, wield the most advanced technology of all Citadel species, and hold immense political influence. On top of that, every Asari is a biotic to some degree, and their unusual method of reproduction, connecting directly to another mind, would unsettle him. To Farsight, the Asari's scheming, subtle manipulation would look far too similar to the playbook of the Ethereals and hidden games of the Eldar, and for that reason he could never truly trust them. Salarians. The Salarians are in a similar boat to the Asari. Not only do they follow a shoot first, ask question later approach, which would be anathema to the Tau, but they are also a highly scheming species. The key difference is this: while the Asari prefer long-term subtle influence, the Salarians, due to their very short lifespans, are extremely opportunistic. Their scientific achievements are impressive, no doubt, but often untempered by wisdom. And of course they are responsible for both the uplifting of a Krogan and the creation of a genophage. That alone would earn them very little favor in Farsight's eyes. Turians. Probably the only major Citadel species to earn Farsight's genuine respect. Militaristic, disciplined, valuing self-sacrifice and public service, and brutally meritocratic. The Turians share many core values with the Tau and the Enclaves. Farsight might find them a bit too rigid and would likely criticize their actions during the First Contact War, where patience and communication could have avoided the conflict, and their involvement in deploying the genophage, but overall, I believe he would like the Turians and seek close relations with them. Volus. Warrior or not, Farsight understands the importance of economy and commerce. The Volus basically run the galaxy's economy. Even though they are technically vassals of Turians, they play a critical role in maintaining galactic order. In many ways, they are more akin to the watercast merchants than even the Asari, who pride themselves on diplomacy. I have little doubt that Farsight would recognize their value and ensure strong relations with them. Hanar. Farsight is not a fan of religious zealots. Not one bit. So the Hanar wouldn't win him over. He would tolerate them, but little else. The main reason for even this limited tolerance is positive. For all their flaws, the Hanar did save the Drell. Competent assassins and warriors, tied by gratitude to the Hanar who saved them. A concept the Tau would understand perfectly. After all, the Krut share a similar bond with the Tau, having been saved from the Orcs. Farsight would likely respect the Drell as fellow warriors, even if he couldn't help but lament the fact that of all the species who saved them, it had to be the bloody jellyfish. Elcor. The friendly giants will be treated with respect, even if Farsight saw them as largely inconsequential. Few leave their homeworlds, they are conservative and they aren't much of warriors. However, they are honest and stand fast in their beliefs. Honesty is one of the Firecast's most valued virtues, so I think he would like them quite a lot. As for the races from outside the council, Krogan. Surprisingly, I don't think he would like them at first. They remind him too much of orcs. He might even consider the genophage an unnecessary mercy, believing the Krogan should have been wiped out. But that would be only his initial impression. Over time, if he took the effort to understand their culture, their struggles and the horror of a genophage, he would likely change his mind. Even then, he might hesitate, unsure if curing the genophage would be too great of a risk for the future of a galaxy. So, sorry to say, the Enclaves wouldn't rush to cure the Krogan the moment they meet them. Batarians. He would see them as nuisance, a xenophobic, aggressive species full of pirates and slavers. Beating the hell out of the Batarians? That's one thing he would wholeheartedly agree with the Systems Alliance on. You can bet Farsight would work tirelessly to dismantle Batarian influence in the Terminus systems. Vorcha. Farsight would see them as little more than pests. A violent, unruly race that must be kept under control or potentially eradicated if they refuse to learn their place. Quarians. Farsight would find them fascinating. A spacefaring species with one of the most impressive fleets in the galaxy, full of engineering specialists. A friendly race, though one that suffered terribly due to their rash actions regarding the Geth and their AI gaining sentience. He would see them as potential allies. To adapt to this new galaxy and its technologies, the Enclaves need engineers with real experience. And who better for this task than the Quarians? The Enclaves would be willing to offer a great deal to secure their cooperation, ensuring mutually beneficial deals that strengthen both sides. Geth. Finally, the only non-biological synthetic species in the galaxy. The Geth would be an enigma, a potential threat, no doubt, but likely more than that. Farsight would approach them cautiously, but he might also explore the possibility of diplomatic solution if one exists. After all, the Tau work with AI reasonably well. Even if he was dealing with the Quarians, Farsight wouldn't automatically abandon the chance to seek a peaceful resolution between two factions. Why limit yourself to one powerful ally if you can gain two? That's it for the species. I won't be discussing the Yag, they are obscure at this point, nor the Collectors or Reapers since they aren't active during this period. At least not openly. This also leaves a room for future scenarios and deeper analysis, where Farsight's opinion might evolve. What you just heard represents his initial impressions. Over time, those opinions would change, more or less depending on the species. I doubt Farsight's view on Vorcha would change much. I hope this video, where I showed the foundation for future scenarios, where Enclaves ended up, and how the first contact with the wider galaxy looked like, was to your liking. Expect more scenarios and more discussions to follow this one. If you enjoyed this content, I kindly ask you to like, comment, subscribe and ring that bell. If you can, support me on Patreon. I also encourage you to donate to Ko-fi Art Budget, so that the art gallery for Star Wars x Warhammer 40k series could grow even more. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you enjoyed. Now, my dear viewers and listeners, remember, wherever you are, whatever you do, try to enjoy yourself while you can. I wish you most heretical day. Ta-ta!